called Jelly Roll Sizzle, and it's from the Fat Quarter Shop. It's a free download, and in the description below the video there's a link to download this from the Fat Quarter Shop. This is done with jelly rolls, and it's one of those patterns I like to call mindless, because you just sew and it's easy. You don't have to think too much about what you're doing, and so it's nice to do these in between all the really detailed quilts that you have to work your brain with constantly. So I call this a mindless quilt, even though it turns out to be very pretty. The instructions, the first 2 pages of the instructions tell how to cut it, how to make the blocks, and then it includes, the front page includes one size of the lap quilt, and then there are 3 other sizes. The crib quilt is 36.5 by 36.5, and the twin quilt is about 60 by 84, and then the queen quilt is about 96 square. And today we're going to be making the twin size quilt, which is about 60 by 84. And for this quilt, we need 70 strips, 2.5 inches times the width of fabric. So you're going to have at least 2 jelly rolls for this, and choose the fabrics that you like the best. And I, of course, am making mine from scraps, so I went through my scrap pile and just chose 70 strips. You'll also need some fabric for the background, and that's what makes these little pinwheel stars in the background. And for this quilt, we need 1 1/3 yards for the background. And I'm going to use black in this one. You can use any color you like, coordinating color, black, white, whatever you want. And people always ask me, how do you put your colors together so well? And the answer is, for scrap quilts, you just don't think about it. And what I've done is I threw all of my 70 strips into a bin, and here's a picture of it. And then I literally put the bin on the side of my sewing machine, and I just chose 2 strips and sewed them together. The only time I made a choice to not sew those 2 together is if they were the same color or too close to the same color, then I just chose another strip. But literally that's all I did, was don't look, grab 2 strips, sew them together, and just chain piece them, and you'll have 35 sets of 2 strips. Now I pressed my seams open just because the next step we're going to do, I thought it would be easier with the seams open, but you can press however you like. And you're going to take these and cut them into 3 long pieces, and they're going to be, this is 4.5 inches right now, and we're going to cut 3 pieces at 12.5 inches. So use your line, your seam line here, and a line on the ruler, and then cut off the selvage, line it up on one of the lines, and line up the cut edge you just did, and cut 12.5. And we're going to make 2 stacks. So line it up again, and we're going to put 2 of these segments into one stack, and then the last segment we're going to put in a stack by itself. Now the instructions say this is to discard this, but you know me, I've got to keep this because I can make something out of it, so I save that. So this other piece you're going to put in a different pile. So this pile, or this stack, you'll have twice as many as this stack. After you cut everything, you should have a stack of 70 12.5 inch by 4.5 inch strip sets, and another stack of 35. So we're going to work with a stack of 70 right now, and you'll need to cut 70 squares 4.5 inches. And this is the background fabric, and this is what makes the little pinwheel design. And on the back of each 4.5 inch square, you're going to draw a diagonal line. Here's the diagonal line I've drawn, and since this is black, I use Sew Line pencil marker. It's like a mechanical pencil, and this is white, and it also comes in black. So you'll draw the line, and then you're going to sew, if you're looking at it this way, you're going to sew just to the right of that drawn line. A lot of people say to sew right on the line, but I find it easier if I sew just alongside the right side. This edge we're going to cut off. So here is the line is sewed just to the right of the line, but before I cut this off, I'm going to mark a 1/2 inch away from the line. So I have a little ruler that has 1/2 inch markings on it. Place the 1/2 inch on the stitched line and make another mark a 1/2 inch away. Then you'll go and stitch on this line. So you'll stitch on the 1/2 inch line and then cut right down the middle. And this doesn't have to be very accurate because it's the stitched line that has to be accurate. And when you do this, you'll have a little half square triangle you can cut down to about 3.5 inches later and use that in another project. But this one we're going to fold over this way and press it in this direction towards the background fabric. And you do that for all 70 of these. Next you're going to put your blocks together. So you'll have 70 with the background piece sewn on them, and you'll have 35 with no background sewn on it. You'll take 2 pieces with the background and one piece without, and that will be 1 block. And if you look on page 2, you want to pay close attention to the placement of this triangle. And for me, it's hard to keep in mind what's going on here. So I just look at the picture to tell me what to do. So the picture is saying put the triangle like this. Then you put the middle piece without the triangle, and this triangle is going this way. This is the only part that's not mindless. You need to pay attention to how these are placed in your block. Otherwise you won't get your pinwheel effect. So you're just going to sew these 3 pieces together to make 1 block, and I pressed my seams open on this one as well. Once your blocks are all finished, you're going to sew the rows together. And for this quilt, if you look on page 4 where the twin quilt is, it has 5 blocks across and 7 down. So we're going to do 7 rows of 5. And here again you have to pay attention to the placement, and what you're looking for is a pinwheel where 4 blocks intersect. And how you're going to keep track of the direction of these background pieces, look at the stripes. These stripes are going horizontal, these are vertical. So you're going to go horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical, all the way down. And then that will be 1 row. Then the next row, you're going to start with vertical because it's going to be opposite of the one on top. So it'll be vertical, horizontal, all the way down. And then you just repeat that all the way down. And when you sew these together, I would press toward the vertical piece. And if you press toward the vertical piece each time, then these seams will interlock when you sew the rows together. So once you sew your rows, sew your blocks into rows, and then sew your rows together, your quilt is finished. Thank you for watching.